Good morning to you guys. Thank you so much for being on here. Thank you so much for joining us on Figure It Out Friday. Love Figure It Out Friday. It's actually turned into something a lot bigger than I even thought it was going to be. And it's funny now because like I hear people say figure it out and they're like, Brock, I figured it out. Or like it's kind of the reticular activator gets into us when we start talking about Figure It Out Friday. And I'm very excited. We got a special guest, my buddy, my brother that him and I have connected at a very, very strong level and excited about 2023 and bringing him back on. So while I get everybody in here, hit up the chats this morning. If this is your first time being on here, tell us where you're from. You never know. You could have somebody that's right in your hometown, could be building connections and networking. You just never know. Good morning, Sandy, Sherry, April, Christian's on here, Claudia, Dennis from Florida. It's a little chilly up here in Charlotte. So Maritza's here. We got Marie here. So we got a couple new people. Thank you guys so much for being on here this morning. We got Margaret from the coastal North Carolina. So Facebook, don't be shy, Facebook. I know some of you, I'm trying to balance a couple things. So my name is Brock Zevan. I'm a life coach, a business coach, a real estate agent, and a dad. And today we are going to talk about relationships. And so my buddy Chad, he is, I'm going to bring him on here very shortly here, but I want to set the stage, Stephanie. I want to set the stage, Claudia. I want to make sure that everybody understands that when it comes time for relationships, I pretty much am god awful at them. I've come to realize I'm not good with them. And so as I set the table here and bring Chad on, him and I were talking about relationships and we were talking about different things. And I want you to understand this, that most of you already understand it, but they're very hard. Relationships are very hard. And my buddy, Justin, he's in Michigan, a mentor of mine, and he was talking about discipline. And I asked Wendy the other day, I was just like, hey, what do you think is my greatest strength? And I'm expecting like something completely what she didn't say. And she's like, discipline. I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, you're very disciplined. And then my buddy Mike Kastner would say that I'm very competitive. And what I realized when I was talking to Justin is that if somebody told me I wasn't good at real estate, if somebody told me I wasn't good at football, somebody told me that I couldn't lift this weight, if somebody told me like, oh, Brock, you're struggling on this, boy, you're not really good at this, guess what I do? Oh yeah, that's what you think? Wait a minute. Don't tell me. My buddy Jim yesterday, I was coaching him up yesterday. Him and I were having a good conversation. And he's like, hey, Brock, I'm getting ready to do an event. I thought maybe you know some people. And I like gave him two names. I really didn't think about it. Like, I just really didn't know. He's like, okay, well, okay, no problem. I just thought maybe you had a couple more names, but let's go on. And I said, wait, what'd you just say to me? I said, hold on a second. Let me go over here to my books and let me see if some other people I can, because I got all fired up because I don't like it when somebody says I can't do something. But here's where I'm getting at. But in relationships, if things start to go sideways in a relationship, you know what I do? I run. I run from the relationship and I don't want to approach it. And when Justin says to me, when he was like, I'm struggling with my workouts, Brock, but we're disciplined in everything else. But I didn't want to work on relationships. I'll work on everything else. And so this is how the whole relationship conversation started to come into play. I'm like, I got to get better in my relationship with Wendy. I got to get better in my relationship with myself. I got to get better in my relationship with my kids. I got to get a better relationship with God. I have to work on my relationships because that is my weakness. And so when I was like, hey, Chad, what do you think about relationships? He's like, oh boy, yeah. I got a couple things, because when you're running your own business, guys, all right, how many of you are entrepreneurs? Raise your hand. Give me a thumbs up. How many of you run your own show? How many of you are your own boss? It's Friday. How many of you are going into work today, not going into work today? Nobody really cares if you go in or don't go in. How many of you are in charge of your relationships, charge of your children, charge of running around, trying to negotiate everything else under the sun? Honey, when you picking like we're in charge of everything. Yet we have to have a balance in our relationships and our lives, and all this stuff was taking over. So, like, Chad, Chad Free, my buddy, South Carolina boy.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, man. Welcome, buddy. Let's talk about some relationships today. Let's talk about a little bit about what we got going on. But good morning to you, brother.
Good morning to you. Good morning to everybody. I'm pumped to be here, man. Always like talking about relationships.
So talk to me a little bit about, you're a successful entrepreneur. You run your Black Diamonds money market, your money. You have a lot going on. You got kids in high school. You got a successful son that plays football at extremely high level. You're married. You got a lot of things going on. Kind of walk us through a little bit. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure, just like many of us, you're this blissful marriage and everything else under the sun is that shiny thing that we see in the movies. In real life, behind the scenes, I'm pretty sure it's not all flowers and blossoms and everything else like that.
Yeah, that's right. But I will tell you that it is the most important thing.
Hmm.
It's the most important thing. And sometimes just the way we're wired, Brock, entrepreneurs and most everybody on here, we get so caught up in trying to chase success, thinking that doing that, we're providing for our family. So we kind of get in our own head that what we're doing is right by being consumed with that success. And sometimes relationships kind of go by the wayside, and we're not putting attention to them. And that's what happened to me. And that was a tough journey for me to get through. It really was.
Hmm. I mean, and I have nothing of like, I'm divorced. I had a really challenging separation, had kids. Like, I think the balancing act that we go through in life, for me specifically, and you could share your story, but like when I was devoting all my attention to all the wrong things, I thought that if I was the caretaker and provided all this money and provided all this stuff, like she's gonna love me. I mean, I'm providing this for her. Until I came up with, and I'm gonna share this, and Jay, if you could put this in the chat here. If you haven't read the book, The Five Love Languages, I need you to read the book. And we're gonna put it in the chat here so you can get it. But it's a very, very important book because it talks about the five love languages. And if you haven't done your love language, I'm also going to tell you that you need to redo it if you haven't done in the last 3 months, because Wendy's love language has changed. And that's what caused us a little shift in our relationship, because she was acts of service. I was acts of service. So you give what you want, and it shifted to quality time. Guess what Brock's worst, lowest thing is? Quality time. And I wasn't given that. I wasn't given that, Chad. And so, like, I was given everything else except quality time, and that's what she wanted. And I don't know how it was in your relationship, but when you're running around doing everything else and managing your kids, I mean, how did that look for you guys?
Well, my problem was that, again, I keep saying this, and we'll circle back to the revelation that I had, but I was so caught up with that idea of chasing success and providing for my family. Like you said, that's my job, that's my role. And I got consumed with that. Well, success to me equaled making money. And listen, here's what I'll tell you. I'm not one, and I was not one to tell you that I was obsessed with money. Okay. I would tell you that at the surface. I was obsessed with becoming successful to provide for my family. All right. But ultimately, what I was doing was that money was my source that I was depending on, and not a resource. And my source needed to be my Heavenly Father, my God, and His purpose in my life. So my alignment with Him was not right, period. And that's the top. And I got to share this verse with you. It's so, look, I didn't know all of this when I was going through it. I had to go through it to realize it. But Proverbs 19:21, all right, says, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail.
Amen.
All right. Now, I saw this other translation, and it might be the entrepreneur's standard of living translation. I'm just kidding. I made that up. But it says, we humans keep brainstorming options and plans, but God's purpose is going to prevail. Listen, I was living 5 years away from here. If this plan happens, if this partnership goes through, if this does, bam, it's all going to be fine. But I was not present, Brock. I was not present. I was present physically, but I was consumed with that. And that's where I was wrong. Mm-hmm. And that's where my revelation came. And when I did have that divine disruption, if you will, and realized that, Chad, you've been chasing success when you should have been chasing excellence, being your best self in who I created you to be. When that happened, the fulfillment on the inside and the burden just left. And that burden was heavy, man. Mm-hmm. But like I shared with you, just because I had that revelation of years and years and years, here I come, go back to my wife. Hey, baby, this is your new man. No. Guess what? You know how receptive she was to that? Do you think she had her arms open? I've been missing you. Finally. No, she had grown accustomed to who I'd become. And you talking about a double shot, a punch in the gut.
I remember when I was drinking and I came back to Laura. And so I had this revelation. So September 7th, I'm like, I'm going to stop drinking. And I stopped drinking on September 7th. And I go back to the bottle one more time on October 31st. And on November 1st, it's like official. And then like my mindset changes. And I remember like it was like January and February, like, oh, I've been doing it for 3 months, babe. And I come back. I'm like, hey, Laura, how are you? Like, I'm a new person now. And I'm not going to use the profanity words, but I treated her like shit for many, many years. And to think me just bebopping in there, be like, hey, Brock, honey, I'm the new person now. She's like, no, you that doesn't work that way. And I was just like, when you said it too, and I was just like, damn, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. This road is going to be very, very long and bumpy. And still to this day, it's not a smooth path. I've been divorced now for several years, over 4 years, and it's still, but that's life. And I started being a victim and being like, okay, Brock, how can you be better today? I still work with Laura every single day. Just because she's my ex-wife doesn't mean like I just throw her to the side. She's the mother of my 2 kids. And so like when you said that, Chad, like it resonated with me too. Like they just think, like we think because we're good that everybody else around us is good.
Yeah, that's right. And I think one of the biggest things is that I learned is humility. And, you know, I think I shared with you when I was going through that. Look, the financial dude is in some financial distress. I literally felt the picture is like vividly clear. I felt like I was holding up a boat, like just a little fishing boat, if you will, wooden boat, whatever. And my family was in that boat and I'm underwater and I didn't have that part figured out. I don't know if I had a snorkel on or you know, but anyway, I was not only keeping this thing afloat, I was the stabilizer too, because I didn't want them to feel any of this. So I kept it to myself because of fear of disappointment, fear of judgment, fear of rejection. But you know what? I mean, that's my responsibility, number one, as a man, right? And I had to realize again that, we have to figure this out. And most of us entrepreneurs, one of the biggest things is it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay that way, because our setbacks, if we don't tend to them, we'll sit in them. And we sit in our setbacks, we settle into that setback. And then before you know it, if we keep running, Brock, if we keep running and we don't face it and we don't just man up or whatever, then we're cemented in this. So then when it does break, boom, you know what I mean? We can't expect for everybody just to jump back. Oh, okay, finally, it's all better now because Chad's better, because Brock's better.
I
And
remember
man,
when
that was a hard lesson.
It is. It's extremely hard, and I'm privileged and honored, and I'm so blessed because many of you on here, I know a lot of your personal stories. We have conversations. That's why I love my job and what I do, being a life coach and being able to help people to understand. Because, there's many of you on here. You're like, Brock, you're relatable. I'm going through the same thing, and I remember talking to you, Chad, about like I wanted to find you. Like I hunted you down because I'm like, this guy's got something here that I'm attracted to. And many of you on here, we understand when we do this, we can't change your life. We can only hope to trigger something inside of you being like, man, maybe I could do something a little different today. Maybe I could be 1% better today. Maybe I can just maybe read something or do something or say something differently to my significant other, my kids. Because when we talk about relationships right here, we talk a lot about our significant others in our past, but our relationship with our kids, talking to them a little bit more. Sandy and I had a conversation. Like I do goals with my 4-year-old and goals with my 10-year-old. We talk about expectations. There's never because Bryce's goal is to have more ice cream. Like it's not the point of ice cream. It's the point of the discipline of what he says. So that way, when he's 5 or 6, he understands goals because there is no goals class in high school. And that's why Chad and I got involved in being in this success school with our coach Bert of helping younger kids. But see, as adults, guys, when I ask people about their goals and what they want in their relationships, it's a freaking mute conversation because we put it off because what Chad said and what I did is we kept it inside. We kept it inside. We try to hold the boat up. We try to keep everybody afloat. We try to pretend we're strong, and women, you're just the same, because I know as men, we like to be strong and we like to say we run the household, but women too, you try to keep it maybe from your kids or you try to keep it from somebody else. But really, when you're keeping it in there, like Chad says, and Wendy and I had many conversations, I said, something's wrong, hon. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit here until you decide to tell me. She looks at me. She's like, what? I'm like, because there's something there. I'll wait. And we'll wait. And we'll wait. I'm like, how about now? How about now? Anything now? She's like, damn you. Okay, fine. I'm like, here it is. Do it. And then we talk about it. And I said, how do you feel after we talk about it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Give me a thumbs up or something. And Chad, you can chime in on this. But after we talk about it, and after you open up, and because vulnerability becomes strength, not a weakness, I gotta believe it's okay. How many of you feel okay after you talk about it and you share about it, whether it's to the person or somebody else? You're like, damn, I got that off my chest. Boy, I feel a lot better. I mean, Chad, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I think that brings up a perfect point. Sometimes we have to get to that point. In those kind of conversations, you know what you're doing? You're listening to understand instead of listening to respond. And a lot of us people, we talk open mindset. We talk, hey, fixed mindsets are no good. And, to be successful, we put too much emphasis in the business world. Look, it's communication. My wife struggled with something that I thought was so petty. And she's the strongest, most beautiful woman that I know. And people love her. 17 girls call her their best friend. How about that? And then we have an in-law, and we'll keep this very, at surface. And sometimes things would just bother her, and she would just kind of change. I'm like, get over it. No, get over it. Why? It was petty to me, but it was real to her. And guess what? That went on for years and years and years and years. But until I realized, and I took the time to say, you know what? If it was petty to her, she'd get it off her plate. But it's real to her. So let me listen. We are one. I am one with her. She is my soulmate. And that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to listen. And now you got a different approach. I might not have the answer, but I'm not just shoving it off. I'm getting beside her. Well, let's work on that together. Let's talk about it. What can we do? You see what I mean? And I think that it's humble pie. We have to just humble ourselves and realize that we don't know it all. But that's where the breakdown happens, man. The breakdown happens at communication and alignment with God. Yeah.
It's so true. And so when we look at this, okay, if I was to go around the room here and say, hey, what is the biggest challenge? And Wendy and I talk about it many times. Like in our relationship, we didn't like each other. You guys heard it the last Friday of the year. We did not like each other. And I talk about relationships all the time. The biggest problem that most relationships have are the lack of communication. And then the lack of communication, we want to just, until we like open up, then all of a sudden it's like, and by that time it's too late. See, what I learned in divorce and separation is this. You didn't get divorced. Like my divorce doctrine says August 26th, 2019. I did not get divorced on August 26th, 2019. I'm just going to let everybody know that. I probably got divorced 2 years ago, but it took that long for us to recognize our problems and situations until we brought to a legal term and with an attorney. Okay. Relationships with our kids, relationship with our coworkers, start today talking to people, start communicating to people today. Because if you're going to try to help your child, you're going to try to help whoever it is you want to help. It's too late by that time. You probably lost them. And you're swimming and crawling, and then we get tired because everybody quits and stops. 87% of people stop doing what they're doing after they get denied twice. And that's what happens. So it's too late. I said it yesterday or the other day. If you want to start working out for the gym, you cannot start working out to look really good on July 2nd. Be like, I'm going to lose weight today to take my shirt. No, it's too late. You're not going to lose 30 pounds on July 2nd, guys. You got to start it today. You got to start now. And that's the same thing with relationships. You got to work on them. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes effort. But Chad, the key thing you said was communication. And the biggest thing Wendy and I do now is we over communicate. We have more conversations, good, bad, or indifferent. I didn't do that in my first marriage. And I fight that inside my head. But there was other demons and other challenges that we had. But communication is so important, whether it's relationships with your kids, with your coworkers, your significant others. You have to talk. Chad, I mean, you and I talk many times during the week. What's going on? How do we do this? And it's so, so very important. So in conclusion, Chad, 8:39, we got 6 minutes left because I always like to end at 8:45.
Do I get all 6 minutes? Do I get all 6 minutes?
Yeah, I'll give you 5.5.
Okay. So here's what I'll tell you guys, period, point blank. And look, guess what? You gave me the microphone, Brock. It's your show, big dog. But here, I got the microphone. I'm just going to tell you my story, me, period, point blank, is I'm jacked up. I mess up every single solitary day. You hear me? I mess up every day. But number one, period, point blank, is my alignment with God. And I fail at it every day. But if that's not right, If that ain't right there, your relationships are not going to be right. You can talk about communication. You can talk about this. You can talk about love. Bam, 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 bam. But if you're not pursuing your alignment with him, period, point blank, guess what? You're all out of whack. And everything down below that you worked so hard for is going to be out of whack. And you're working against it. And you're telling God ultimately that he don't know what he's doing. I know what's best for my life. And that right there, period, point blank, like it or you don't like it, we are not humble. But when you pursue him, when you pursue that alignment and what he's called you to do, then guess what comes automatically? A little more humility, a little more love, a little more, hey, patience. Because I'm going to tell you right now, and I will get choked up every time I talk about my family, just like I did at that thing we did at Lake Norman. I'm scared to death of needles. I hate needles. I will start breaking out into a cold sweat, and I cannot talk about my family without crying, and that's not a show, because it's now that I know how valuable and precious they are to me. And I absolutely, intentionally pursue my bride. And I absolutely, when my son says, will you throw the football with me? You know what? That's a yes. Other things can wait. Yeah, I am still very ambitious, but guess what? I know how to categorize that stuff. Because if I want to leave a legacy, you know what that legacy is? That's me pouring into my kids every day and telling them how much that I love them. And that goes for my wife too. Yeah. So I feel like I'm a big, strong guy. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I love my family, man. And the feeling and the fulfillment that I don't even know if I ever experienced just from living this way and pursuing my purpose. Guys, that's what it's all about. And I will go to the top of the mountaintop and share my story to wake people up. It's not all about you. You got to take care of you. You got to invest in yourself. But so many, you think you're making promises to the people that depend on you. You got to make a promise to yourself first. And you can't make a promise to yourself until you make a promise that you can keep to God, to be your best self.
I always use the word integrity because I can talk all big game on Facebook here, blah, blah, blah. But those that are close to me, you understand, like, I have to have the same integrity, the same character when people are looking at me, not looking at me. And the thing that I always use, the thing that always gets me, because not all of us are married. Not all of us have this vision and this dream and this thing. And we're trying, because some of you on here in the last 30 seconds, you're trying to find yourself. You're trying to figure it out. You're trying to find your why. There's people I coach like, well, Brock, I don't have kids. How do I do this? There's something there that you got to dive a little bit deeper. Your alignment with God, your alignment with yourself, because yourself is the most important relationship you need to have. If I decide to drink today, all bets are off and I lose a ton of stuff, more than many people, because the drink that I have is just, it's not just the drink anymore. It's everybody else around me. And that means the most to me. Because I promise you, I wouldn't have 30 some people that are on here today listening to us if I was a freaking drunk and I was drinking Bloody Marys. You're like, why am I listening to this guy? I can go to a bar and see somebody drink. This guy doesn't bring people on that aren't successful, that have the stories that Chad has, the emotion that Chad has. You all have it. And I challenge you today to find it, to write it down, journal something that you've never journaled. Many of you, I tell you to journal. It's the hardest thing for me. I start off with 3 minutes. I journal a day, 3 minutes, because that's all I can do. But you know what? I do it and it helps me. So Chad and I, we are talking again next, I don't know, Wednesday's webinar. on the January 18th at 11 o'clock. Him and I are going to talk about Christmas credit cards and debt. We're going to talk about financial problems that we've had last month because we went to restaurants, for the Christmas cards, the Christmas gifts that we bought, for the Thanksgiving trips, for everything else that we've done. What is it? 11 o'clock, Chad, the webinar we're doing?
Yes, that's correct.
And Chad's the main man that's going to talk about how to get yourself out of debt. I'm just the person that talks about all the debt that we all have and bring it to life and the transparency of it. And he's going to break it down, because to me, that's important. To me, you got to start off your first quarter getting yourself out of debt. Taxes are coming up and people are going to push their taxes. Trust me, I've done it for many years. So we got that going on next Wednesday, January 18th at 11 a.m. The links are in there, bz3.com. Also, Chad, you got your website. What's your website? Chadfree.com?
Chadfree.com. You can go there to schedule a call. And again, mindset and money actually just prevent people from pursuing their purpose. And that money thing, man, it just gets in the way. And I want to help you using your existing lifestyle, man. Embrace it. I ain't trying to get you to sell a car and ride a bicycle. It ain't like that. And I ain't trying to create problems. I'm trying to solve problems. I want to help people. I want to take that obstacle and make it a resource instead of a source, so you can start pursuing the relationships and really just pursuing your purpose.
Man, I can't thank you enough for today. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your story. Guys, give it up for Chad. Put hearts and loves and likes all on there, please, in the Facebook. Let us know what you think about this type of stuff. We love seeing it. It helps us. This is our engagement. This is what we do. So please feel free to put the in the comments, in the emojis and all that other jazz that we have in the Facebook world and in the real estate or the Zoom world. So Chad, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for sharing tonight and this morning and being here. And thanks so much, guys. I appreciate everybody on here.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it so much.
All right, guys. If you need any of our stuff, it's on Facebook, chadfree.com, bz3.com. Feel free to take a look at any of that stuff, and looking forward to seeing you guys hopefully in 2 weeks on January 18th. Love you all. God bless you. Chad, thanks, brother.
Yes, sir. Happy Friday.